Baer Jr. spent 9 years on set with Irene Ryan. To the millions of fans watching the Beverly Hillbillies, they were the inseparable Jethro Bodine and Granny, fueling the most watched show in America with laughter. But when the cameras stopped, the laughter vanished. They yelled, they clashed over timing, and they battled over scenes. For decades, Max stayed quiet about the woman behind the spectacles. Now, at 88, he is the last surviving member of that iconic cast, and he's finally ready to reveal the truth about Irene Ryan, what she taught him, what she hid from the world, and what truly claimed her life in the end. A legacy of steel and shadow. Baer Jr. was born on December 4, 1937, in Oakland, California, into a world where his name already carried the weight of a legend. His father, Baer Sr., was the heavyweight champion of the world, a man of mythic proportions who famously wore the Star of David on his trunks to defy the rising tide of Nazism during his 1933 fight against Max Schmeling. +1. Growing up as the son of a champion meant Max Jr. lived in a house defined by danger and charm. His heritage was a mix of German Jewish and Irish roots, a powerful identity during a volatile era in America. But the shadow of the ring was long. His uncle, Buddy Baer, was also a top-tier heavyweight who later transitioned into acting. Boxing was in one room, Hollywood was in the next. Tragedy struck early when Max Sr. died of a heart attack in 1959 at just 50 years old. Max Jr. was 21, left to navigate a world that expected him to be his father. Instead, he forged his own path. He was a four-sport athlete in high school and a champion golfer. He even served as a medical technician in the U.S. Air Force, a role that grounded him far from the glitz of California. He eventually earned a degree in business administration with a minor in philosophy. It is the great irony of his life that a man trained in business logic and philosophical inquiry would become world famous for playing a character defined by his total lack of both. The martini that made Jethro. Max's entry into acting was almost accidental. While having lunch at Warner Brothers, an executive noticed his 6 feet 4 inches frame and resemblance to James Garner. He was offered $250 a week, serious money in 1960, and he took it. After a string of roles in westerns like Maverick and 77 Sunset Strip, the audition of a lifetime arrived in 1962. Max tested for Jethro Bodine on the same day Irene Ryan tested for Granny. Nervous and intimidated, Max went to lunch with Irene, who bought him martinis to steady his nerves. They worked a little too well. When Max returned for the screen test, he was so clumsy he walked straight into a doorframe. Instead of breaking character, he gave a goofy grin and muttered, "Excuse me." The producers were floored. That stumble, fueled by Irene's martinis, became the blueprint for Jethro. The secret war on set. The Beverly Hillbillies was a phenomenon. At its peak, an episode like The Giant Jackrabbit drew 50 million viewers. But inside that success, the relationship between Max and Irene was complicated. Irene Ryan was not the cuddly grandmother the public imagined. She was a veteran of vaudeville and radio, nearly 60 years old, and she viewed the set as a battlefield. She was direct, sharp, and demanding. She and Max frequently bumped heads. She expected perfection in blocking and timing, and she didn't care whose feelings she hurt to get it. Guest stars were often terrified of her, and crew members grew weary of her rigid standards. However, Max eventually realized that Irene wasn't being cruel, she was being a professional. She knew how fickle Hollywood was for older women. She fought for every inch of her screen time because she knew it could be taken away at any moment. She taught Max that comedy was a craft, not a joke. Never believe the character, she told him. It was a warning to keep his soul separate from the mask of the lovable fool. Max also noticed a bitter double standard. When leading man Buddy Ebsen demanded script changes, he was a leader. When Irene did the same, she was labeled difficult. Max grew to deeply respect her refusal to shrink in a man's world. The hidden struggle and the final act. Behind the scenes, Irene was hiding a growing fragility. She suffered from chronic headaches and weakness, yet she pushed through, fueled by constant smoking and an iron will. When the show was abruptly cancelled in 1971 during CBS's Rural Purge, where the network famously cancelled everything with a tree, Irene didn't retire. She moved to Broadway to star in Pippin, performing 8 grueling shows a week and earning a Tony nomination. But the strain was too much. In 1973, she suffered a stroke on stage. Doctors later found a massive brain tumor and heart disease. She died on April 26, 1973, still believing she would recover and return to the stage. She worked until the very end because work was all she had. Escaping the shadow of Jethro. For Max, the end of the show was the beginning of a new struggle. He was so heavily typecast that he couldn't land a serious role. At one point, the man from the #1 show in America considered selling cars just to survive. "Starvation was my motivation," Max famously said. He stopped waiting for Hollywood to call and decided to build his own door. In 1974, he wrote, produced, and starred in Macon County Line. On a budget of $225,000, the film earned over $30 million, making it one of the most profitable independent films in history. He proved he wasn't just the boy in the hillbilly suit, he was a savvy businessman and a storyteller. The last one laughed. Today, Max Baer Jr. looks back at those 9 years with a clarity that only time provides. He doesn't see the arguments or the yelling anymore. He sees a mentor who sharpened his skills and a woman who showed him how to survive an industry designed to discard you. He remains the last link to a golden era of television, a man who outlived his character and his critics. His story is one of resilience, moving from the shadow of a boxing champion father to the shadow of a sitcom dunce, only to emerge as his own man. If you found this look into TV history fascinating, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Prestige Buzz and hit the bell notification so you never miss a story of your favorite legends.